through. And and let's go ahead and actually just get to it. I did want to put in a quick plug for the podcast this week. If y'all didn't see my interview with Christian Zerko, it was quite an extensive talk. He and I have not spoken in a couple of years. It was really great to get him back on the show to talk about cult recovery. This is something Christian has been working with people one-on-one at for almost as long as I've been alive. For almost 50 years, this guy, has been doing this work, and he's always wonderful to talk to. And so we talked about all kinds of things having to do with recovery and getting past cult stuff, and all the things some of the doorways you have to walk through, or some of the crap you have to deal with. We sort of broke a lot of that down in the show, so I hope you guys will check that out. And of course, the Friday show was all about current events and things happening here in America, and with our Supreme Court and various things in the last week. And it's been an exciting and anxiety-ridden time here for some of us. Anyway, so I talked about some of that on Friday. Okay, so let's now get to your questions. We have Jessica Beach is asking, how can someone recover from the Sea Org without professional help? Okay, let's get that. Is that going to pop up on the screen? I hope it is. Yeah, it looks like it will. And, this needs to be reset so I can see it when it's live. I had it somehow paused when I was looking at the live stream here. There it is. Okay, good. So we can see that up on the screen there. Okay, Jessica, let's answer your question. Well, there's a lot of ways that people can address or start dealing with their cult experience, whether it was Sea Org or, some religious group or some other non-religious group. I have always pushed or tried to talk about post-cult education as a very important thing. But obviously the first things you got to deal with when you're talking about recovery is your basics, your fundamentals, right? You have a transportation. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a source of food and money? Do you have these basic physical needs covered as your very, very first steps? If those aren't covered, there's really not a whole lot of reason to talk about, higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy or something, right? Higher level needs if you're hungry or tired or not, or you don't have a job or something. So those would be the first things to deal with. Once you have some kind of functional system of support, and you can start building a support system for yourself. This is friends, this is family, this is, let's see here. Okay, good. Looks like we're all on top of things. Okay. So any kind of support system you can start building for yourself by meeting or contacting people who might have information or support or help for you. For somebody coming out of the Sea organization or out of Scientology, of course, I would contact the Aftermath Foundation, who can be of assistance to people in that, in a lot of different regards. So aftermathfoundation.com, I believe it is, or aftermathfoundation.org. Check the website on that. So you can start building or getting some kind of an immediate support system. And then it's a matter of figuring out, once you've got those kind of things settled and your life is sort of on a track again of some kind, you feel like you're on top of things, then you can start looking back into the past and start dealing with, okay, we got trauma, we got this, we got that, we got bad information, we've got emotional, roller coastering and ups and downs and good days and bad days and all that kind of stuff that comes out of having been in a traumatic situation. And this is where, short of, without professional help, this is where it's... Oh, thank you, Fabian. Oh, hey, you can super chat in that in the question box there, and Fabian, thank you for your super chat there. Okay, so So education. Okay, so this is what I'm always going to circle back around to, because for me, for my experience in helping other people with their experiences, I've always pushed for learning what happened to you. What is this all about? What are cults? What is coercive control? What is trauma? What is abuse? What is critical thinking? What are emotions? What's emotional intelligence? What are emotional needs? These are very fundamental things to all of us. What's a brain? How does it operate? It operates quite a bit differently than how you were taught it behaves in Scientology. There's a lot of false information that people are given in Scientology and in the Sea Org, and it's like onion layers of stripping that stuff off, layer at a time, a bit at a time. They didn't hit you all with it on one day. You're not going to necessarily get rid of it all in one day, and it's learning about those things. Learning, in other words, what was done to you. What was done and why was it done? And there's different ways of learning about this. There are different books and lectures and TED Talks and even institutes out there that will assist in this, in offering educational materials or books or articles or even studies that have been done, that you can avail yourself of, that you can find out about. And in doing so, learn about what happened to you, why it happened to you, what you did and what you didn't do that you can, or should be responsible for, and what parts of it were very, very much not your responsibility at all. And so even sorting out, the ideas of accountability and responsibility is a whole thing for ex-cult members coming out of the Sea Org. So all of the above, right, are part of the recovery process for somebody coming out of the Sea Org, and none of that would require any professional help. If you could then, on top of that, avail yourself of some therapy or some counseling or something, great, rock it. But you can do an awful lot by yourself, and I sure did for many, many years. And I made a number of strides and a number of recovery milestones before I ever had one conversation with a therapist in a therapy situation. So there you go. Okay. And good. Oh, no, it looks like that's in the regular. No, I can't tell. I can't even tell anymore. But I do have my question queue here, so let's go back to that. Oh, Fabian's super chat was not in the Q&A section. It was in the regular comment section. Okay. All right there. My mistake in calling that in the question section here. Because I'm looking back at the question section. We're going to move on to the next question. Okay, so we come to Anthony Spurgeon asking me, what do you think about Trump disavowing Project 2025 recently? Okay, here's what I'm going to say about this. And Bud123, thanks for showing up here again today. I wanted to say in response to some of the comments you left on Friday, which were great, that I didn't see or respond to, I wanted to just pipe in real fast that you had mentioned when I was talking about Project 2025 and the sort of unlimited powers that this gave the President of the United States due to a immunity from any prosecution for any acts, official or pretty much otherwise, that he engages in. You had mentioned that Congress still has the power of impeachment, and you are absolutely right. As I understand it, Congress does still maintain the power of impeachment. The SCOTUS decision didn't touch that. However, if the President of the United States decides to simply not show up for an impeachment, to cancel it, to do away with, or otherwise impede the function of the impeachment, no one can get in his way or stop him, can they? And that's kind of a problem. In fact, it's a huge problem. The problem is not necessarily that other branches of government remain completely powerless, although SCOTUS pretty much did chop themselves and the entire judiciary off at the knees. with their decision, because if a president has immunity from any official acts, then no court can ever act to stop him, and no prosecutor can ever act to even bring charges or indict him. So it does sort of cut off the judiciary, but you're right, Congress could still impeach the president, as I understand it. But is the president going to cooperate with that? Would he need to? And what things could a president get away with now that he wouldn't have been able to get away with in getting in the way of that? That's what I'm more concerned about than the fact that Congress could enact could call for articles of impeachment. Now, in answering this question here, Anthony asks about Trump disavowing 2025. Trump sent out a tweet or a message saying that he hadn't really heard about it before, wasn't really keen on it, said that there were parts of it that he disagreed with, and that's all very interesting. But Donald Trump's name appears in the 900-page Project 2025 manifesto or agenda document like over 130 times or something. I mean, it's a bit outlandish to me that Trump could disavow something that is so closely connected with his allies and what they want. And I cannot and do not believe that Trump has no knowledge of this or is somehow out of the loop with what 2025 is all about, Project 2025. So I don't believe him. And I have lots and lots of very good reasons to not believe things that Donald Trump says. He has been proven to not be very, a very avid truth teller. He's keen to say things that are not true. And you can check even the most recent objective fact checking from the debate, where he didn't do a whole lot better than Biden, to be honest, but everybody focused, super hyper focused on Biden. And you know how I feel about that. I'm not happy about it, but about Biden and his performance there. But Trump didn't exactly win that debate, and he certainly didn't bring the truth to what he was saying. He lied in almost every single claim he made. So there's problems there with that, right? And that is one of them, is that he might say he doesn't know or cotton to or approve of Project 2025, but that either says that he's so out of the loop that he doesn't even know what his own platform is about, or he's trying to it wasn't particularly well thought through. There's some panic happening right now on the right, on the GOP side, on the Trump side, with this Project 2025 and all the things it actually calls for. For example, not just culture war stuff like abortion and interracial marriage and doing away with that. It also calls for the end of Social Security. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. Straight up. Nope, we're going to phase that out. We're not having any more of that, right? Social welfare programs, nope, right? EPA, nope. OSHA, nope. We don't need any of those government regulations or bureaucracies getting in the way of corporations doing their thing. Nope, we don't need any of that, right? So let's get rid of all those government organizations. Climate change, just flip a coin, it'll be fine. So that's this Project 2025 thing is not just about culture war stuff. It's about really changing the entire framework of our relationship with our government in a really, really big way. So this is stuff that the GOP and the right extremists, they know this isn't popular. They know it, right? They're not all stupid people any more than Scientologists are stupid people. That they know what they're doing, and they know that it's not something that the majority of people want, and they don't care, right? They're going to shove it in as best they can anyway. And if Trump has to lie to somehow, oh no, it's not that bad, right? No, it is that bad. And it is part and parcel of Trump's platform. If he's elected, this is happening. This isn't like some like, oh no, it's, you know, we're not gonna let the extremists loose. They've already been let loose. This is already, they're running riot over all of this stuff. It's that, it really is that bad. So so there you go. Okay. Let us carry on here. What do we have here? Okay, if Trump wins, do you think that America will understand how it feels to be under a person with a cult leader personality like JW's in Scientology? Yes, I think a lot more people are going to come to learn what that feels like. And I was saying on Friday, I've lived under that. You know, a lot of people have. I'm not trying to put myself up as somebody special. I'm trying to put myself up as somebody who has lived in an authoritarian system for years, for decades. And I know what it feels like, and it's terrifying. It's a very, very scary place to be. Your level of anxiety is ramped up to levels you're just not familiar with right now. I mean, you might have had instances in your life or times in your life when you've had some really, really horrible, scary, terrifying stuff happen to you. And all I can just say is that living under a destructive cult leader, living under an authoritarian system, is like having those danger times ramped up so they're all the time. All the time is like that. You are on edge, freaked out all the time. And it's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for the stability of your life. It's not good for your emotions. And ultimately that means it's not good for your relationships, and it's not good for your job or your employment or your safety or security or feelings of certainty, right? It attacks all of these things. And so, yes, I do think that eventually that would be a thing where an awful lot of people would come to learn what it feels like to live in a cult. And I would very, very much spare everybody that. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I never, ever, ever have. And I don't have some like, you know, oh, you know, you guys are going to see, you'll see, right? No, I don't want that. I don't want everybody to see. I want everybody to continue to live in blissful ignorance of what it means to be in a cult. You know, that's what I want. Okay, so let's carry on here. Xion asks, tell us a time when you helped someone who was in a cult without naming names. Sure. Fairly recently, I worked with someone. I was actually really happy about this. I worked with a person, a woman whose husband was involved in WISE, in the business consulting stuff that Scientology is doing, and he was getting wrangled into that and being friends with and making tight relationships with people in Clearwater, in the Scientology world, who do business consulting, all in the direction of making new Scientologists through this, but starting off by getting Scientology into people's businesses. They're regular secular businesses, not these are regular people who aren't even Scientologists. They just want to do better at their jobs or with their offices or something like that. And they'll hire these consultants who are Scientologists who will bring L. Ron Hubbard stuff into their company. And this woman contacted me about that, and she was pretty upset about the fact that her husband was getting more and more and more wrangled into that. And we discussed the situation, what it was about, how they do what they do. And she started, you know, speaking with him, and there were some ups and downs, and there was some anger, and there was some this and that, but it's sort of, you know, we calmed some things down and got some communication across. And once he sort of really got that this was a problem, and that it was going to continue to be a problem because his wife was not going to stop thinking the way she was thinking about this, that Scientology is bad and dangerous for him. She started showing him some things, and he agreed, okay, cool, yeah, we're gonna gonna step out of this. We're not gonna do this. This is not a good thing. And they stopped. And last I heard, that was a done deal. So so it was kind of fun. That was a good thing. And I was happy to help them with that. I never spoke with him. I just helped her deal with him, and she did the actual work of it, which is usually how this goes. And it was a win-win all around, and she seemed pretty happy about the whole thing. So so there's an example of the kind of thing I do. When I talk about what I do off camera, there's an example of what I do. And it didn't even take very long, you know. It was a few sessions of talking with her and figuring some things out, and really helping her kind of lower her own stress about it, so that we could, you know, deal with it. And I think it came out okay. Okay. Fabian Andil, off topic. How do you see Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles? Okay, let me just check something here real fast, because I think I know who this person is. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Michael Knowles, American conservative political commentator. Worked for the Daily Wire since 2016. Oh, well, that's going to be a winning combination. Political commentator. Wanted to be an actor. And raised Catholic. Experienced a reconversion to the church. And then got into political commentary in 2016 on the Daily Wire. Okay. Opposition to same-sex marriage and opposed attempts by someone in the conservative movement to recognize such unions. Men are not women. Student protesters disrupted his talk. This is one of these guys. Okay, called climate activist Greta Thunberg a mentally ill Swedish child. The network apologized for his comments, but he didn't. And has no plans to. Okay, so this is just one of these unapologetically awful people. I think that there are people who, like Ben Shapiro and this guy, who I'm just sort of judging off of what I just looked at there. I think that there are people in this world who have decided to become or put out purposefully incendiary, even vicious statements and commentary in order to attract attention to themselves, so that they can be loved by those who hate and hated by, you know, those who love. Really. And I think that they are people who get off on or seem to get an adrenaline rush or something from agitation, from agitating other people. They experience joy and pleasure in the tears of other people and the frustration and upset and angst that they create. Not just that it exists in other people, but that they take pleasure in creating. I think that that's a personality flaw of magnitude for compassionate, empathetic human beings. I don't think that Ben Shapiro is an empathetic person. And Knowles certainly doesn't sound like one. And their public persona is one of controversy. Let's create controversy, even where one doesn't exist. We're going to contribute to making it one. And they'll pretend that this has something to do with their individual morality or their personal values or their integrity or something. But if so, then their personal values and integrity involve, you know, the despising and wanting to take rights away from other people, like gay marriage, for example, or same-sex marriage, or Greta Thunberg calling her a mentally ill Swedish child is a disgusting statement. So I think that there are people who just kind of do that, who decide this is how I'm going to make a living, is I'm going to make a living by fomenting hate toward other people I don't like for whatever reason. That's how I'm going to get by in the world, is I'm going to rile up a bunch of people to really hate these other groups of people. Rush Limbaugh did this as a profession. Sean Hannity has done this for years. All the Fox News commentators, really, the opinion commentators, right, all do this. And I find it despicable behavior. If you ask, how do I see them? I see them as despicable human beings. That's how I see them. I don't think they bring value. I don't think they bring calm or rational, thinking to these situations or these problems or issues. I think they bring, I think they bring barrels of gasoline to a fire, and they want to watch it burn. So that's how they enjoy poking the bear. That's right. That's exactly right. So that's kind of how I think about those guys. Yeah. OBG Foster, now that Biden can break the law, which laws should he break? I think he should send the conservative judges to Guantanamo. I actually think that's exactly what he should do too. See, there's a funny thing that I was going to comment on, and I didn't go there because I thought people would try to think I was playing this, Biden is an angel and Trump is the devil thing or something. And I wasn't really, I'm not saying any of this right now to do that. I'm making a point that nobody expects Biden to do anything with these newfound powers that the Supreme Court has just given him. Right? SCOTUS knows he's not going to abuse his power. Nobody expects Biden to abuse his power. Everybody expects Trump to. Everybody. And if you're on Trump's side, you want him to abuse his power because you think it's justified and rational for him to do so. I don't, but people who support him think that if he does it, it's like Nixon. Well, if the president does it, it's not against the law, right? So here we go. Trump can now unfetteringly do everything he's ever wanted, and nobody can stand in his way. And this is a feature, not a bug, to people whose heads are so far up their asses that they can't understand what's actually going on. And I'm just kind of all done with being, kind about that, because we're dealing with fascism right now. And I can't be kind and conservative and cool about that. I'm not cool with it. I could not have been more blunt about it on Friday, and I'll continue to be that way because I feel very strongly about this. And if you're somebody who wants to enable Trump, then we're literally talking about enabling, fascism now, because that's what that guy's about. We already know from people who were in his administration while he was in office that there were times when he called for the death or violent dealing with of protesters or people he didn't like. We already know he wanted to do that. And if given the chance to do it with unfettered access to the military or the FBI or the DOJ, he will take advantage of this. We all know this to be true. Like I said, even his supporters know this is true. They just are seeing it through this whole other lens. So should Biden now, go off and throw some people in Gitmo? Well, it would certainly teach Alito and, Thomas and these guys, John Roberts, a few lessons in power, wouldn't it? If he had him picked up and flown down to Cuba. Boy, wouldn't that be something? So, yeah. That would be literally justice for those justices, right? Oh, you want to give the president power to do whatever he wants? Good. Well, here we go. Here's you at the receiving end of that power now. Aren't you happy you did that? Right? What Biden really needs to be working on right now is getting more justices into that court. And that's not going to happen because Congress isn't going to let him. McConnell will stop him in a microsecond. But it would be good, if they would do that. Okay, ex-Scientology. Ex-Scion, would you rather take the blue pill of a contented ignorance or the red pill of an unsettling, difficult reality? Okay, so let's make sure that's going up on the screen. Come on now, where's my... Yeah, there it is. Okay, good. Just waiting for it to catch up. sometimes when the commercials show on the screen here, it delays the live stream feed. And so I end up a little bit further back than I think and I can't, anyway. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so would you rather take the blue pill of a contented ignorance or the red pill of an unsettling, difficult reality? I am a red pill guy. I actually posted it on my Facebook page. I think it's on my page. It says, like, I would rather live with an uncomfortable truth than a pleasing lie. I'm not about pleasing lies. I lived too long with pleasing lies in my life, with lies that were meant to make me happy and comfort me and give me a false sense of security and certainty. And I don't crave those things anymore, right? Electrolytes, it's what plants crave. Certainty, it's what cult members crave. I don't. I live in and am okay with the knowledge that this is an uncertain world, and this is a very and whatever you think the future is going to bring, you're wrong. I love saying that because it's just universally true. It's just such a great thing to say. Whatever you think the future holds, yeah, you're wrong. It's going to be different. So that's always kind of fun to know as well. So an unsettling, difficult reality, because you can't. Here's why, right? Beyond the funny of it is, you can't deal with your life or the problems of your life or the problems of all of our lives if you're living in a delusion, if you're living in a bubble, where you think it's not that way, or where you think reality is different than it really is. You're not going to be able to solve any of the problems or deal with the issues or confront what's really happening. And that's why I want to and prefer to have a real, even if it is unsettling, view of reality. So there you go. There you go, bud. Let's do both of them. Let's take both. Okay, let's see here. Where's my... There it is. Okay. Oh, here's a funny question. Stuart Gorman. Are all cult leaders extremely talkative? Could there be a very taciturn leader? How would that work? Yes. Not all cult leaders are Mr. Motormouth, Miss Motormouth. I think to, Buddhist type, Hindu type, meditation type leaders, right? Where they're spending most of the time not talking. But at the same time, they got to get the dogma delivered somehow. They have to get it out there, and they have to insist that you read it and understand it and follow it. Otherwise, it's not really much of a cult, is there? There have to be rules. There have to be, dicta, right? And the cult leader, usually being the kind of narcissistic personality that they usually are, they kind of like to hear themselves talk. They kind of like to get going on a roll, and they're very pleased with the sound of their own voice. So yes, it could work that you could have a cult leader who didn't talk much, but somebody's going to have to do the talking. So maybe the cult leader could be more of a figurehead type who just sits on the throne, and his lieutenants or her lieutenants, or whatever their inner circle, deal with the congregation or deal with the members and deal with the rules and the justice and the teachings. You could have a situation like that. And I suppose, if you were to look at, let's say, how often does David Miscavige appear in the lives of Scientologists? Let's look at Scientology for a second. He'll stand on a stage and he will go on a roll for a few hours. 2-3 hours are usually how long Scientology events last. But that's only every few months. Scientologists don't hear David Miscavige going on at a mad rate, every day. They really do only get a limited experience of him, just as a point. So, it might work something like that, where the leader comes out infrequently, every now and again, a few times a year, once a year, something like that, makes their appearance, does their holy blessings, circuitus, spuminus, spaminus, and everybody's happy. So could work like that. after it's pretty well established, after you got books or lectures or things people can listen to or read without having to listen to the cult leader directly, right? Okay. Let's carry on here. Okay, Red Pill 3000. Please explain Project 2025 in more detail. I looked it up and it's scary. What kind of hot sauce do you like? Would you classify Yanni's music a form of torture? And would you watch midget wrestling for? Okay, wow. I would not watch midget wrestling at this point, although I have in the very, very distant past when I was a kid. I would not classify Yanni's music as a form of torture, although I don't know that it would be the top of my list. I actually really like all kinds of hot sauces, but I think the one I eat more than any other is Los Calientes. There's a red and a green version. I think I like the red one more than the green Verde. But Los Calientes is actually my hot sauce of choice. I have an answer for you on that one. I've had all the way up to, I am a fan of Hot Ones, and I have had lots and lots of their hot sauces, all the way up to Da Bomb. I've had the hottest of the hot sauces on those. And they are hot. And I don't really like the super hot burn your mouth off. You want to just, rip your jaw off. I don't eat those regularly, but there was this blueberry. What was this? It was a cayenne blueberry sort of hot sauce that was a little tasty. It had some flavor to it. And I like hot sauces that actually have flavor you can taste. That's why I always fall back to the Los Calientes. Now, as far as Project 2025 goes, okay, so this is a big thing, and there's a lot of stuff to this big document and sort of platform and agenda or manifesto, et cetera, et cetera. So let's take a look here at the Wikipedia article on this, all right? Basically, it's called 2025 Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. And it's a collection of conservative right-wing policy proposals from the Heritage Foundation. And if you don't know, the Heritage Foundation is an activist American conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. that has been around since 1973. And it took a leading role in the conservative movement under Reagan's presidency in the 1980s. The Heritage Foundation is a group that has some juice. They have some power in DC. They're a think tank. They write papers. They do meetings. They get people together. They do, sort of conferences and stuff. And they have pretty hard right values and ideas about how America should be. And so they've put forward a series of proposals, of policy proposals, to consolidate executive power if the Republican nominee wins in 2024. It proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil service workers as political appointees in order to replace them with people who are more willing to enact the Republican president's proposals. They're just we're talking tens of thousands of government employees right now get switched over with party loyalists. That's what a political appointee is. It's somebody who's going to do what the party tells them to do. And there is I think it's I read about this, and don't quote me on this. It's either 3 weeks or 3 months. I'm sorry that I can't remember which one. But there's a series of workshops and video seminars and indoctrination materials for these political appointees already created, and they're trying to actively recruit people to get indoctrinated in what to do so that when they do become appointed to one of these offices, they will be good little, brown shirts. It asserts that the president has absolute power over the executive branch. absolute power, which is not something the president has ever had. For example, the Department of Justice or the head of the FBI are not people who have to listen to or take orders from the president, and in fact are very, very much not supposed to. They are supposed to act independently. These guys want all of that to be history. They want the president to, when the president says jump, everybody in the executive branch says how high. And many legal experts have said it would undermine the rule of law, the separation of powers, the separation of church and state, and civil liberties. In July 2024, this month, Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts said, and this was on CNN, I believe, quote, "We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be." That's a direct quote from the guy who is in charge of all this. In April 2023, Project 2025 director Paul Dans, D-A-N-S, said, quote, that it is systematically preparing to march into office and bring a new army of aligned, trained, and essentially weaponized conservatives ready to do battle against the deep state. That's a direct quote. The project proposes deploying the military for domestic law enforcement. Project 2025 envisions widespread changes to the government, particularly economic and social policies, and the role of the federal government and its agencies. The plan proposes taking partisan control of the DOJ, the FBI, the Department of Commerce, the Federal Communications Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission, dismantling the Department of Homeland Security, and sharply reducing environmental and climate change regulations for favor of fossil fuel production. The blueprint seeks to institute tax cuts, though its writers disagree on the wisdom of protectionism. And protectionism is sometimes referred to as trade protectionism, is the economic policy of restricting imports from other countries through tariffs and things like that. So there's controversy over tariffs. They want to cut Medicaid and Medicare and urge the government to explicitly reject abortion as health care. They state that life begins at conception and seek to eliminate coverage of emergency contraception under the Affordable Care Act and enforce the Comstock Act to prosecute those who send and receive contraceptives and abortion pills nationwide. If you have anything to do with abortions, abortion pills, abortion procedures, abortion rights, you can and will be prosecuted by these people. They want to put you in jail. And the project seeks to infuse the government with elements of Christianity. It proposes criminalizing pornography, removing legal protections for sexual orientation and gender identity, and terminating DEI programs and affirmative action by having the DOJ prosecute, quote, anti-white racism. Prosecute anti-white racism. Not have a free market or a free open debate or discussion about any of this. No, it's criminalizing it. Oh, you don't like white people? Yeah, you're going to jail. The project recommends the arrest, detention, and deportation of undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. by using the military to capture and place them in internment camps. Okay, so you can read the rest of the proposals about it on Wikipedia. I have given you the major highlights there. It is as bad as I have read it. It is as bad as you think it is. It is that bad. These are people who are religious fanatics. They are cult member types who are putting this project together. These are fanatical people. They are not reasonable, rational people. The people who have created and are endorsing and pushing for Project 2025 are not good people. They are people who want to see you dead if you get in their way. That's the kind of people we're talking about. It's right in their policy proposals. I don't have to know these people to know what these people are about. This is what I've been studying for 10 years now, is these personality types. These people who it's my way or the highway, and if you don't like my highway, then I'll bury you under it and keep going on, because I have a vision, and this vision is the only vision that matters, and there isn't anything else that can stand in its way or should get in its way, because Christian nationalism is the only thing that makes sense. That's what these people are about. They want a Bible in every single school. They want a Bible tucked under the arm of every single child in this country. They want death and annihilation. And I wish these words that I didn't have to use. But it is what they want. If you're gay, if you are anywhere on the LGBT spectrum, if you are somebody who is at all interested in gender identity or sexual equality or anything like that, you are an enemy to these people. They are patriarchal. It's the umbrella of, protection under Jesus from the darts of Satan. That's the mindset of these people. These are the last people you want in charge of anything. So that's my answer to that question. There you go. All right, let's see what else we got here today. George Smiley. What are the dangers of ex-cult members using YouTube as a mode of therapy? It's fantastic that they can receive support from strangers, but I worry that audiences can turn into terrible therapists. Boy, you are not wrong at all. I mentioned a week ago or so, I mentioned the thing about how the internet doesn't have a brake, right? A pedal. It doesn't have a stop. Nobody on the internet, when they're watching controversy and conflict, ever suggests in the comment section, hey, why don't we lower the temperature here? Why don't we all calm down and have a conversation? That doesn't happen. When you put yourself out there and you are raging and acting out, people respond to that by pushing you for more and more and more. This is the exact opposite of the direction that somebody should be going in if they're trying to heal. Healing is not about riling people up and riling yourself up and bringing all those trauma triggers back in so you can rage and scream and cry on mic and entertain your audiences with your trauma. Right? That is not healing. That's not a healing environment. And this is difficult because it is cathartic and healing to tell your story, to experience your emotions, to have your say, right? To get your soapbox. It's very healing, and it can be really, really empowering. So, but there's a line, isn't there? There's a place where you go from telling your story, sharing, the trauma, getting some sympathy or getting some attention and some acknowledgement and feeling like somebody finally hears you. We want that. We want that. But then there's this line that somehow there's this gray area and this line that gets crossed somewhere where we aren't healing, we're attacking, and we are engaged in the drama fest of well, I'm now going to assign the reasons for my trauma to this person or this group of people, and they're bad and wrong. And these are allies. These are people who are actually trying to do the same thing you are, and we're going to have a battle now, and we're going to have a war, and we're going to, do this kind of conflict intensive stuff. Whoa, right? We're that's not good, right? That's not good at all. So maybe let's not go that far with this. Maybe let's not go that extreme with this. And because the audience are terrible therapists, if I'm being honest, right? Because it's just not even remotely the same kind of conversation, right? Comment sections on a live stream or in a YouTube channel are not therapeutic. It's not even the same. It's not even remotely the same thing. So yeah, obviously. Yeah, and it's when audiences are the opposite of therapists and are riling it up and making it worse. That's when I think you're really, you've gone too far, and it's not good for a person. Okay, Anthony Spurgeon asks, who are more slimy and gross, televangelists or TV psychics? Oh my goodness. I have to sit here and think about it, right? I don't know if I can decide. I mean, they're so crappy. I'm going to say both equally, and the reason why is because they're both basically doing the same thing. What you have with TV psychics or online psychics and televangelists is you have individuals who are pretending that they are a conduit to a supernatural force that will give you what you want if you give them as the conduit what they want, right? They're going to sell you salvation or answers or certainty from a supernatural force. They're going to deliver that to you, and all you have to do is send them $99.95, right? Or $9.95. And buy their holy water, buy their special crystals or their magnets or their chakra reinforcing quantum pebbles or something. And you're away, right? You buy from them, you give them money, and they will deliver you, happiness. Tale as old as time. Right? So, gross. Yeah, pretty gross. I can't put one above the other. They're both equally slimy. Yeah, morally speaking, it's disgusting. All right, beyond Jehovah's Witnesses, how much is Trump similar to L. Ron Hubbard? Personality-wise, they share an awful lot of personality traits. They are both serial philanderers who have never valued or seem to experience the feeling of love as a thing, or compassion or empathy for another human being. I think they arrived there by different roads, but I think they both have arrived at the same place. Trump, didn't have love in his life growing up. He didn't have a family that supported or in any way gave him an experience that you would call love or compassion. Hubbard did. Hubbard grew up in a family of people who did love him and did care for him and supported him. But he was of a type of personality, whether through brain injury or genetics or just kind of, who that guy was. He rejected that love, and he couldn't really experience it or have it. Trump never really got it. And I think he learned the wrong lessons from all of that, as anybody would growing up in an abusive home. There was physical violence and there was all kinds of psychological torture of him as a child. And military school, where he seemed to, thrive for a bit, but, again, kind of learning the wrong lessons and already being sort of ruined earlier on. Trump's father, Trump's role models growing up were the very worst of people. So he learned, those lessons that way. And as a result, not only is there the sexual philandering and the carelessness with relationships, the sort of attitude that people are tools to be used. If somebody's not any good to you or isn't going to assist you in some fashion in a direct, measurable, substantial way, they're useless to you. They might as well not exist. They have no value. And everybody weighs and means, weighs the the value of their relationships as to what give, what take. But this is much, much, much more rawly transactional, if that makes sense. This is how Trump navigates his life. His people in his life are either loyal to him and do what he says, or they're useless and they are the enemy. He lives in a very black and white world. And he's a very simple person. Trump is not complicated. People who have worked with him and interacted with him in detail, like people who have really had to work with him, former cabinet members, his former secretaries of state, people who worked with him professionally in New York, one for one, these people testify to the fact that he's pretty stupid. He's really not a smart man. He's not well read. He's not he's well traveled, but he doesn't learn from the experiences because, again, everything is super, super transactional with him. You either have something for him or you're giving him something, or there's something you can give him in the future. And if he cooperates with you, like a Putin, let's say, right? If he cooperates with you, he looks up to you, he thinks you're going to give him something, he will bend over backwards for you. Otherwise, he couldn't care less about you. Hubbard was very, very much that way. Hubbard had a personality that was very much like that. But he was a little better at covering it up as a cult leader. Hubbard was. Trump is a lot more raw because he's incentivized to be. People reward him for his bad behavior. And we already know from the Epstein logs and the recently released stuff, as well as what we already knew and suspected and had numerous people, tens of women, not a couple, tens of women have come forward talking about how Trump physically assaulted them, abused them sexually and otherwise. What is the personality of a person who does that? How would you have to see the world? How would you be navigating the world if that's the kind of thing that you got up to on a routine or regular basis? Right? Because it wasn't just one or two women. There's lots and lots of them. That, people talk about, well, I don't care. I don't care about his personal life. I don't care about his proclivities. I don't care about his sex life. Well, you should. You should. Not because of the moral outrage of Trump being a sexual predator, but because of what that says about his integrity, his sense of honor and decency, and what that means to how he will treat people in other contexts. People who are sexual predators don't contain that behavior. It spills out into every aspect of their life. It's, that's how it really works in the real world. And so when Trump engages in foreign affairs as the president, for example, it's all about him. What's this going to look like for him? What's he going to get out of this? How much money can he make out of this? What opportunities does this present to him individually? That's how he thinks about everything and everybody. And that's how L. Ron Hubbard was. So that's how they are similar, as I see it. Okay, carry on here. So really deep, good questions this week. I hope these answers are doing it for you guys. I'm kind of we're getting way more political than I usually get this show, but since you're asking, I'm not going to hold back on talking about this. Yes, X-Cyan, last Friday you talked about not wanting to be under a fascist dictatorship again, like the one you experienced in Scientology. Do you feel that people are afraid to call it out for what it is? Yes, I absolutely believe that there are people who are afraid for a lot of different reasons. I think there are people who are afraid to call it that because they don't want to. They want to live in denial. Denial is an easy place to go for a lot of people. No. Head in the sand. Nope. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to see it. A lot of people in our world are like that. So that's a problem. there are people on the middle who don't, there's denial, but there's also just no, I don't, let's not call it that. Let's not say that. You're going to lose people if you say that. That's too much. It's too extreme. If you say words like that, it doesn't mean anything to people. It just goes over their heads. And they're right. We've so misused Nazis and authoritarianism and the Holocaust and all that stuff. There's been so much hyperbolic use of that language that when it really matters, the language doesn't really bring it and communicate the way you want it to. This is why in talking about Project 2025, for example, instead of talking about the tyranny that it will bring, because that just goes over people's heads. They just tune out. They can't, they don't want to deal with that reality. So instead, it's too much for them. It's too big. It's too big a message. So instead you go, look, this 2025 thing, they want to take your Social Security. They want to cut Medicaid and Medicare. Like, it's right there. You can just quote right from the project. It's right in there. It's not cryptic or hard to find, And so you can just quote from these things and make it a bit more personal and a bit more direct to people as to what they're going to lose individually, because they can't, for whatever reason, and I've never really been able to figure this out with people, but for whatever reason, they just can't connect dots on this stuff. You say fascism and they just whatever, Mussolini, World War II, whatever. You're just you're just not you're just hyping it. You just don't want you just don't like Trump. You just don't like the right. You just want to sin. You're just a sinner. There's so many people have so many lines to use on this. But that's where people go, right? So yeah. And I guess, one second, let me think about something for a second here. I think the other thing that people don't want to call it out for is not strictly denial, but if they call it out and see it for what it is, then they have to deal with it. Right? Then they have to oh, yeah, this is, and then they have to I gotta fight it, and I don't know. They just don't want to. They'd rather not. I guess that is a kind of denial, isn't it? That's how I see it. It's kind of like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you just don't like internment camps. That's right. That's right, Robert. Okay. Young Matador. Hey, Chris. A new Wall Street Journal article discussed more companies using electric systems to monitor worker productivity, especially since COVID. Do you think the Sea Org or front groups would deploy something similar? That's an interesting question. Okay, so here we're talking about spy software, keystroke recorders, mouse clickers, right? These things that people will use or the companies will use to monitor or spy on their employees, right? So they're monitoring, whether your mouse is moving. They're monitoring whether you're typing. And that is supposed to monitor your productivity, because if you're spending more than 5 minutes away from your keyboard or your mouse, then clearly you're not working, right? It's sort of the old, if you're not cooking, you better be cleaning sort of attitude that we would run into in fast food all the time, right? Don't stand around. You better not be standing around. Don't just stand around. Well, give me some work to do, right? That's meaningful. Well, clean. You can always clean, right? The place is never clean enough. Sea Org was a little bit like that, right? Don't stand around. But with the Sea Org, you're getting yelled and screamed at so often that I don't know if keyboard monitors would even be a thing that would last for very long. I mean, you could, and then there are posts in the Sea Org that require sitting at a desk doing an awful lot of typing or an awful lot of desk work. But, enforcement in that group in the Scientology groups is much more in person than I think you realize. There's a lot of people coming to your desk all day long. And it's so chaotic and random that I think that if you tried to put electronic surveillance in on top of that, at that level, it would be counterproductive. It wouldn't really do the job you think it would or would want it to. Now that level, the keyboard mouse level being maybe not so much, what they do use in the Sea Org, and I'm pretty sure in external security cameras as well, is facial recognition software, and they are probably keen to get AI into practice within Scientology, so that they can use that to help them with their evaluations and using the computers to smoke out offenders or people who are not, getting their job done, or this kind of thing. They would love to have a computer be able to pinpoint who the down stats are, and write the reports every week. And because they've implemented systems in the past that try to do these exact things I'm describing right now. They called it the TNT system, the target nudge tally system. And this was something Incom put together back in the 80s and 90s. And the computer would actually be writing knowledge reports on you for not getting your targets done. But if they could have it evaluate your job by looking at or analyzing your statistics or your post products or something, they'd be keen to do that. They would definitely be all over that. So, okay. So if I see that twice, no big deal, young Matador. Okay, so that's what I could say about that. There you go. Okay, let's see what we got here. Fabian asks, you said you're quite patriotic. How can you see like this while the U.S. government lets people die on the street, left, right, and center, and this while overspending military, engaging everywhere, ... Okay, totally got your point. Totally get it. Being patriotic, being nationalist, being somebody who has pride in your country is something that is instilled in almost every country in the world. Every nation wants their citizens to be loyal to and see their country in the best possible light, and that this country has it together, and the systems that we have designed for this country are the ones that work, and they work better than anybody else's, or something along those lines, right? We're better than other people. And this is enacted lots of different ways all over the world, from pledges of allegiance to, flag flying and waving, to national holidays, to symbols and iconography and things like that, all designed to instill in us certain attitudes and ideas that will stick with us, that will make us feel our country is the bee's knees, right? Well, I bought into all of that growing up in America, just like, millions and millions of other people did. I'm an American. This is the country of my birth, and this is a nation that other countries envy in many, many ways, has been that way for decades, if not a couple centuries now. This is proven by how many people keep trying to come here for opportunities and protection and security and independence, and the American exceptionalism that imbues our national psyche. These are all qualities of the American character, or the American spirit, or identity. And I bought into a lot of that stuff, right? I have. I grew up here, and this was my education, my indoctrination, if you will. And I've always loved my country. I believe, I don't know, but I believe that our system of government, as a framework, as a system, an objective sort of, not as it's practiced, but as it's framed, as it's designed, I believe our system is amazing. I believe it's quite genius in how it was put together, what it was trying to do, checks and balances, this idea of having a system where we're not gonna let somebody be a dictator. That was the primary reason why America was put together the way it was put together, is no more goddamn dictators. Enough. These monarchs and these authoritarians and these madmen who take charge because God said they should, or they were part of a family of people who just ruled over all of us for no other reason than that family happened to take charge centuries ago, and here we are still stuck with them. You know, these monarchs and these aristocracies and these dictators. You know, they always take advantage, and we're sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of it. You know, we're tired of taxation without representation. We're tired of the bullshit. So we're gonna give this a real good hard think, and we're gonna put a system together here that isn't gonna let that happen again. And we're gonna write a bunch of papers. I'm gonna tell you guys, please, you know, here's what we intended. Here's what we were thinking. Just keep it going. You know, that's all they asked. And it was a good system. It is a good system. It's a good experiment, right? It was a worthy experiment. And it took centuries of corruption and human nature and more corruption to erode it and tear it down and do things with it that shouldn't have been possible to do, but people did it anyway. Your Richard Nixons of the world came along and screwed things up, you know, and your Johnsons of the world pardoned them rather than convict them and put them in jail where they belonged, right? We just have this cultural problem with kings and kingships. And people seem to crave it, like like plants crave electrolytes, right? People crave dictators, and it's this weird thing that we do, but we do it. So I'm patriotic because I believe in our system. I believe in the values that I was raised to believe our country represented: freedom, compassion for others. You know, that poem on the Statue of Liberty on Ellis Island was not just words to me. Those were, you know, bring us your huddled masses, your poor, your right? That whole thing is what the America I grew up in. That was the vision I had of this place, is that we were welcoming shores of opportunity and exceptionalism, and we got the job done. And the buck stopped with us, you know, that we were willing to go above and beyond for the rest of the world, and we were willing to put our people out there in harm's way for what was right and for what was good. That's the America I grew up thinking I was in. And, you know, and predatory people and narcissistic people, just like cult leaders, get in charge and they ruin things. They screw things up. They make things good for them and bad for everybody else. And this is your Mitch McConnells of the world. This is your congressmen who just take. They look at our government as something to take from and not something to serve as part of. You know, people like that I have no time for. People like that have no place in serving in government. It's supposed to be service. It's supposed to be something you do that is for the good of people. You know, that whole thing. That's what I'm patriotic to. And the corruption and the things you point out, right? The overspending and the engaging everywhere and the other stuff that goes on that the United States has been up to. You know, there were good and bad reasons for a lot of things that America has done in the past that people look back on now and want to spit all over. Some things were done because they looked like the right thing to do at the time. Other things were done that were definitely not the right thing to do at the time. You know, I think about, you know, the whole Bush reaction to 9/11, right? Horrible ideas, horrible ideas, and not supported by most of the American people. But Cheney was on a power trip, right? And Bush was just let Cheney roll right over him, and that was the government we had at that time, and people were pissed, and there was a lot of emotions and tensions and all that. And that's just one of hundreds of things our government has done that I'm not proud of, and I don't look back on and with any degree of happiness and go, yay, go America, Team America, fuck yeah, right? America. I ain't that guy, right? I don't fly a flag in the back of my, F-150 with Trump stickers and cop thin blue line stickers all over it, right? And Bible first and this kind of crap. That ain't me. I believe in a secular America. I believe in the America that I read about growing up, and I still think that light of potential freedom and compassion and care for the world. That's the America I want to see. That's the America I want to live in. And that's why I see it. That's why I can say that, right? It's an idealism more so than a reality. I know that. Right? I'm not an apologist for America's Guantanamo Bays or torture programs or CIA MK Ultra bullshit or any of the other atrocities that have been committed on or because of Americans, right? Or on American soil even. Tulsa or the Tuskegee experiments or the countless numbers of things that we have done here, Japanese internment camps during World War II. There are tons and tons of things that this country has done that are not anything to be proud of. But you go show me any other country in this world, anyone that doesn't have a history of doing the exact same things to its citizens. Every one of them has done it, right, in history. They have, right? Because people are people and they're pretty awful. But we have a dream of something better. And for a long time, this country has stood for that ideal. And now our Supreme Court and religious fanatics and predatory personalities have eroded enough of the foundations that they are really, they can see it. The prize of domination of the world is right there. They can see it. They can taste it. We're that close to giving it to them if we don't vote correctly in November. It's that situation. So I still believe in and want that America that I dreamed about and that I grew up thinking was what this place was all about. And that's why I'm patriotic. Okay. Yeah, I've been asked about this a couple times now. I've seen Xion. Have you heard of a term called a glimmer? A glimmer is a moment of happiness, the opposite of a trigger. Other than your questions, I have never heard of this before. You've asked me a few times. I'm finally hitting on it. A glimmer. I mean, it's a cool word. It certainly is fine for me. You know, I have lots of glimmers in my life, to be honest. But that's, yeah. I have now heard of that. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Xion asks, do you think that you'll never be the person you were before you entered the cult? You can learn to cope with the experiences, never completely forget them, and they will always have an effect on you? Yes. Yes, I will never go back to the person I was before the cult because I was too naive. And once you learn things and once you see it, right, you can't unsee it, you can't unlearn it. Nor would I want to. That's the whole point of the lessons. Don't forget them. So no, I can't go back to that person. I was naive. I was also more judgmental. I was more sure of myself in so many ways. I was so sure that I understood the world in such different ways. I was more hopeful in a lot of ways, and I'd like to get that back. That I'd like to see come back, and it could if things go, you know, in some hopeful direction. I'm all about hope, right? I got a lot of reasons to hope, but it's harder these days. It definitely is. And let's see. And I will never, ever believe in anything like I used to. I can't, right? I mean, and it's just a good idea not to, I was raised with the idea that commitment and a full 100%, and if you don't give 110%, you're not giving anything. And if you're not going to go all the way, why go at all? That was just sports movie bullshit. And screw that. You never go all in with anyone or anything ever. Not because you expect to be betrayed, but because you need to keep your wits about you at all times. And if you go 100% in on something, you're saying, I don't need to keep my wits about me, right? I can trust fully. No, you can't. You should not do that. It is not a virtue to do that. So. All right, let's carry on here. Get some other good questions coming in. Xion, what if Trump became a Scientologist? Trump would never, ever, ever become a Scientologist. Ever. Trump doesn't think there's anything wrong with him. First point of entry, right? You got to be humbled. Trump can't be humbled. It's impossible for him to be. He would never become a Scientologist. Oh, here's a funny question following right on the heels of what I was just saying. Could you trust in another person enough to let them tell you what to do without question? No. Nope. I reserve the right to question. Always. Always. It's my thing now. Because even if somebody else, it's not even about just trust or loyalty, because consider this, right? I was watching The Boys last week, and there was a line Kimiko gave to Frenchie when she was going to go beat up some people or something, and she didn't want to have to explain the whole thing to Frenchie, and it was just like, okay, look, I'm going to go. You're my friend, and what that means is when I tell you you're going to come and help me with this, that means you come, no questions asked, and we're just going to go do this. And I watched that, and I said, nope. You know, that is a loyalty test that is being put out there, that I'm your friend, and if I say this has to happen, you're going to come with me and we're going to do this. How do you know, as that person's friend, that that's really the best thing they should be doing at that moment, in that time, for that circumstance? What if there's a better way to go? What if there's something else to do? What if that person's literally in such an emotional haze right now that they're about to take you and them right off the cliff? And you're supposed to just go along because you're a loyal friend, because you're in it 100% with this person, ride or die. Fuck that. No, that's not how to be a good friend. It's not even being a good friend. It's not even being a loyal friend. Because a loyal, good friend would look out for you. Make sure that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And if it's not, or they don't think it is, to be a good enough friend to go, hey, hang on a second, I have questions. And I care enough about you that I'm going to ask them, instead of just going along ride or die. Woohoo, here we go. Loyalty to the end. Yahoo! You know, so you can both end up worse off. That's not being very good as a friend, right? So that's kind of how I think about that. So no, I will never trust someone. But I hope we are clear on the fact that it's not even about trust. It's about, you know, looking out for yourself and looking out for other people. Okay. Fabian, Andy L., have you tried to get on to other podcasts proactively? You have a lot to say, and only the packing can be improved. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have, and I'm going to be doing more of that. I've got a little project I need to do in the next few weeks. I was going to list out every single cult podcast out there, and I was going to try to kind of sort them by audience size and stuff, and try to look into what I can do better and what other shows and stuff I should be reaching toward and reaching out for, because I do want to get on other people's shows. Thank you for that, and those are my plans on that right now. Oh, not much, actually. Okay, now we're coming up on 2:30, so I'm going to have to go into, I'm going to go into speed mode now. We're going to see if we can't wrap this quickly. So, Xion asks, what do you know about Tom Cruise's sister, Cass Capozorio? I read that she and her other sisters are all avid Scientologists. Well, Cass is married to Greg Capozorio, who's definitely a hardcore Scientologist from South Africa. And yeah, they're... as far as I know, Cruise's whole family is in Scientology, and that's kind of what I know about it in a nutshell as a rapid answer. So yeah, of course, except of course for his daughter. Yeah, she ain't in. Okay. Okay, Bo Beats, no sheep. Would you rather have the ability to fly or be invisible, walk through fire, or swim without breath? Wow. Ooh. Damn, those are good ones. I want to fly. I'll choose flight. Okay. Xion, do you think Biden should stand it down or stay the course? I think, this is a tough one. This is such a tough one. But I think he should stay the course, because I think going off at this point is going to be unsettling, unstabilizing, and make things even worse. And I really hope I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's a tough one. That is a tough question. Okay, Fabian, how do you see the recent decision of the Supreme Court regarding the prosecutability of the president? Is the president now a king? Okay, well, I think we have definitely talked about that during the show, Fabian, and you can also, of course, check out my my Friday show as well, where we talked about that. Okay, good. The good one, thoughts on the protesters in Hollywood, California. Well, I've pretty much already said what I thought about the protesters in Hollywood and LA. It seems to be a very dramatic situation over there. I haven't even really checked in well over a week or two now. Other than seeing some headlines on Reddit, I'm really not paying any attention to the protesters in Hollywood. I don't see anything productive or useful happening there. Prove me wrong, but I don't see it, right? I just see a bunch of noise. Those are my thoughts on that. Okay, Beyond Jehovah's Witnesses. Can Scientology take underage kids to become Sea Org members without their parents' consent? Have they done this in the past? Yes. The Sea Org has definitely recruited children into the Sea Org and has not gotten one or both parents' consent. That has happened many times in the past. Right now, they seem to be saying that they are not recruiting minors. And that's probably true. But how long that will last, right? Don't know. They always break their own rules on that kind of thing when they get desperate enough, and that's that. So, yeah. So, yes, they have done that in the past, and I'm pretty sure, given their proclivities, that they will do so again in the future. Yes, we already answered that one. From Young Matador. Oswald Spengler, what do you think of Myers-Briggs personality typology, and what do you reckon Hubbard's type would be? Okay, I put no stock in Myers-Briggs or pretty much in any personality test other than to give, broad generalized ideas of how the person feels at the time they're taking the test if they're being honest while they're taking the test. And that's a pretty big if, isn't it? If you think about it. People always putting their best foot forward, or maybe they have some bias or some desire or some need for pumping up one part or other of the test, or maybe they have, trauma, shame, guilt connected with some answers, and they answer negative when they should be answering positive, or. There are many, many pitfalls to personality tests, like lots and lots of them. Years and years ago, I did a video breaking down the Scientology personality test. And when I did that video, I researched personality tests across the boards. And I talked critically about them in that video, not just about the OCA. I think I called it like scam or pseudoscience or something, the Oxford, the Scientology personality test. You can look it up on my channel. And I recommend you do so because I really broke it all down in there. And this was years ago. I've only become more sure since learning more about psychology and testing since that time that these personality tests are just for the birds. I really don't put any stock in them. So I couldn't speak to you intelligently about the various types that come out from the Myers-Briggs. I know they have the, AIJ or whatever, IEJs and MEFs and whatever else they have as their test results. I know, I'm being silly. But like I said, maybe there's some degree of accuracy or efficacy in them, but I would never use them as a hiring, firing thing at any company I ran. And I wouldn't use them to judge or feel like I now know something about this person because of the results of this personality test. Until I talk to them, I don't know anything about them. And a personality test isn't going to give me any keen insight because there are so many pitfalls to it that the reasons why the test results are the way they are could be for a number of reasons outside of their personality. That's my generalized answer about that, but that's my take on it. I hate those things. Okay, let's see here. Give your head a shake. Why can't I see my questions and comments? Well, if you put your questions in the Q&A box under that comment, they'll appear in this box. I can see that you can't see. That's just for me. And that's where I'm getting my questions drawn from. If you're putting them in the regular comment section of the chat, you should be able to see them. Okay. Unless for some reason I've blocked you at some point, but then I don't think I would see this comment. So, oh gosh, yes. Young Matador, do you ever have nostalgia for your early years? I now have a lot more sympathetic feelings for the 90s when I grew up than I did during that actual decade. Yes. Yes, I do. I'm an 80s boy all the way, right? Of course I am, because that was when I was a teenager. And I have all kinds of nostalgia. And again, tempered with the reality of the 80s wasn't really that great a time. But it was kind of for me. I really enjoyed the 80s in so many ways. I mean, hell, 80s, that's when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. That's when Field of Dreams came out. That's when Wrath of Khan came out. That's when I was in high school. That's when, that's when Huey Lewis and the News were my first concert. And seeing Bryan Adams in concert and seeing, this and that. And the 80s was just it was a wonderful time. So yeah, I got nostalgia. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, Bud123, keeping it simple today. Does the conspiracy that JFK was murdered with CIA involvement have any merits? The government still won't release the entire JFK files, even though JFK Records Act release deadline has passed. Okay, JFK. There's no answer that's going to satisfy on this one, right? They've already figured out what their answer is. So me just, saying whatever I say is just going to be fire on the fuel, fuel for the fire on one end or another of whatever conspiracy solution you have for JFK's assassination. I read, this might surprise you guys, maybe not. Back when I was in Scientology, when the movie JFK came out, and around that time period, the Oliver Stone one, right, with Kevin Costner, around that time, I think it was early 90s, I read the Warren Commission report. It's a big ass book. I mean, I read most of it. And I had lots and lots of talks with a friend of mine, another Scientology friend of mine, who was absolutely convinced, he was absolutely convinced that it was a lone gunman, that there was no conspiracy ever, that no conspiracy, no government agency, no mafia, no CIA, no Russians, none of it. It was just Oswald was the lone gunman, and he was crazy, and he did what he did, and Ruby took him out. It strains my brain to think that that's true. It's hard for me to believe that it was just a lone gunman. I've asserted that. I have thought that in the past. And like I said, I've read the report. I read the testimony. I read Oswald's testimony. I read all the witnesses. I went through it all. I went with the map and the this and the that, and he went here, and then he went there, and then he knew this person, and then he knew that person, and, all the stuff, right? And the Russian backstory, and the Russian wife, and the government connections, and all that stuff, right? And then the mafia being involved, and, and Ruby, Jack Ruby, and his connections with the mafia, and then the CIA, and the Cuba connection, and all that. So I don't know is my answer to whether the CIA connection has merits or not. I don't know. I know that we're never going to know. That I know. I know the secret isn't in some document somewhere that hasn't been released yet. I'm pretty sure that's true. Obviously I can't know that, but that's how I feel. I feel that we're never going to know. There has been, let me just say this, is there has never been, I don't think there has been any moment in all of history that has been examined more closely than that one moment of shots ringing out in Texas that morning, right? That whole moment is been put under so many magnifying glasses by so many people that at this point, it's just an intellectual exercise, and one that I don't really feel qualified to engage in, even after having done all the things I did to look into it. All I can walk away with from that is it's now myth. It's not about facts or evidence anymore. It's risen to the level of myth and legend in American history. That's how I see the JFK assassination at this point. So, that's where I come from. Okay. Oh, we really have to wrap up here. I'm going to see if, okay, we're almost done. Polar Vortex, in a fight over the leadership of Scientology, who would win, DM or Trump? David Miscavige would win. Yeah, because he knew Hubbard and he's closer to it and all that. Yeah, it would be DM. Bo Beats. What about walking through fire or swimming without breathing? One more. Time travel to past or future. Oh my God. Now you're tempting me with time travel? Clearly, I'm going to go time travel. I mean, flight is pretty awesome, but nothing on time travel. Oh, if I could travel through time. Oh my God. The people I would meet. The things I would do. Oh. Ugh. Okay. I'm not sure. Give your head a shake. Why would a psychiatrist conduct an interview with a non-violent patient while hiding behind a two-way mirror? I don't know. I'm going to need a lot more context than that. I could think of a few reasons. I mean, maybe the nature of the experiment calls for anonymity on the part of the psychiatrist. Maybe the patient or the person who they're consulting with or surveying or treating can't know their gender or their identity or their name or their face for some reason. Maybe it's a distraction. Maybe it's a problem. That's some reasons I could think of for why you would need to do that. It would be heavily context specific, and I couldn't even. I'm just making up answers right now. I don't know. Yeah, could be a few reasons though. Okay, and finally, this will be the last one we'll wrap up today. Are there mechanisms that you're aware of coercive control that we utilize on ourselves for the better? First thing I thought of is mantras, right? Affirmations, which is repeating or chanting things to ourselves to try to train our brain into a kind of attitude or emotional state or feeling about something, right? People do that to themselves all the time. And yet that's also a mechanism that can be utilized for coercive control. So sure, there's an example of one. Let's see. Isolation. Individuals will isolate themselves for various reasons. Either they feel they're a threat to themselves or a threat to other people, or that they feel that they need to be isolated for distraction purposes or concentration purposes or focus reasons, right? I'm going to have to, gotta get everybody, get away, right? And I'm going to turn off all my social media. I'm going to turn all this stuff off, right? And they isolate themselves, even going off writers, going off to sabbaticals or up to the mountains to write a book or something, right? And shutting everything down and taking themselves off the grid, right? That would be something that a coercive controller might do to somebody for purposes of controlling them, but it might be something somebody would do to, not be so distracted so they could get their work done. So sure, it's all about context, isn't it? Is it harmful or is it helpful? Is it beneficial or, is it going to hurt you in some fashion? And is it consensual? It's really the big key word. Are you doing it, or is somebody else doing it to you because you want them to, or because you're okay with it, or is it because they are, forcing themselves on you? So, so there you go. Okay. Oh, Fluffy Wickets is not getting questions in here. I am not seeing them. You are right. Let me take a look here. See if there isn't. What is happening here? There we go. All right, I'm looking back through my comments box, Fluffy, and I am not seeing, nope, I do not, out of all the questions I answered here today, you're not getting in the chat box, and I don't know why. You'll have to sort that out. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, it looks like you're posting in the right place, but I guess they're not coming up. I don't know. Now, I see you asking here earlier, Fluffy, is there a clear sense of what Oswald's motivation was? Now, that's just in the regular chat. So if that's where you're putting them to get them to me, that would be why they wouldn't be coming to me. But if you're trying to put them under that Q&A one and it's not showing up, I am very confused as to why that would be that way, because I'm seeing lots of other people's and I can see yours in the regular chat. So that's interesting and a bit of a mystery for me right now. I hope we can figure that out. Okay. Let's wrap it up, guys. Yeah, almost 2 hours, and I'm going to be recording with Tony in just a few. So that's why I got to go. As always, guys, Always fun to hang out with you. Thank you for coming around and watching me blabber on at a mad rate about this stuff. I really, I feel sometimes like I'm blabbering. I hope my answers are useful to you, are educational to you, and are helpful in some fashion. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing. You can contact me individually if you would like for one-on-one consultation for any kind of post-cult experience you might be having. If you need any help or guidance or assistance or education or just want a friendly ear, understanding ear, right? I can provide that for you. And of course, if you have a friend or a family member who is also involved in a coercive situation, do not hesitate to reach out to me and let's see if we can't figure it out and I can't help you navigate that. All right. And of course, like, share, get this video around, check out my book on Amazon, all the other plugs. And on that, thanks, guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.